black, 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 I'm black, black, my thoughts so black, 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 I'm black, my skin is so black, I'm black and all black, everything is black.
Rims on these black wheels, on this black wheel, put this black
on black,
black, black, black, black. I feel like Trayvon with this black hoodie on, Huey P. Newton, Black Revolution.
Welcome back. Yes. Welcome back to the hottest show in the galaxy. This is not a topic that I'm intimately familiar with, but I recognize that listening to my voice right now, maybe so many people who are just didn't want to get out of bed today. Some people didn't get out of bed today, and I'm glad that you are tuning into this show. I've heard across the country when we traveled on the voter registration drive, and even recently I went to Florida for a women's conference, the Women of Color Empowerment Conference in South Florida. So many people come up to tell me how much this show has been an inspiration, the guests that we have on, you know, that we get people through the day, and the channel 126, and, you know, from top to bottom, you know, we are with on purpose. But I don't really understand, you know, the notion of not wanting to live another day. Like, that's not in my psyche. It's not part of my DNA. I was just telling my guests that, you know, when bad things happen to me, I get angry, and then I'm like, I'm gonna show you. So if it's somebody I don't want to be with, you don't want to be with me, all right, watch, you're gonna see me again. You want to fire me, all right, I'm gonna come back. I'm buying your company, because that's how I treat everything like it's a battle. What? But there are people who inwardly process things, and for them, they can't see their way out. And so we want to spend some time today. If you are depressed, there's no judgment. This is Vegas. This is a no judgment zone. We love you. Just because I don't move that way doesn't mean there's anything wrong with you. Maybe there's something wrong with me. We're going to talk about that in a second. But what I do know is no one's alone. Whatever you're going through, somebody else is going through it. This is not whatever's happened to you has happened to other people, has happened before. And that should provide some solace that if you get up tomorrow, something different can happen and you can make something different happen. And I believe that with every fiber of my being. But this week is actually Suicide Awareness Week. And so I wanted to have this woman back on. She was on before. She blessed us and she brought books. So if you are depressed or you know someone who is depressed, and you need a resource or something that can help get you through it, give us a call. We're going to give away a book on Twitter with the hashtag Karen Rebels. Karen Rebels, hashtag Karen Rebels. We'll pick a book winner from Twitter, and the third caller at 866-801-8255 will win It's Not Always Depression, Working the Change Triangle to Listen to the Body, Discover Core Emotions, and Connect to Your Authentic Self. Let me welcome the one and only Hilary Jacobs Hendel. Welcome back. Welcome back.
Thank you, Karen. I'm glad to be back here talking about such an important subject.
Have you ever been so low, so sad that you wanted to hurt yourself, that you wanted to not be here anymore?
I would say not really. I mean, I have a few memories as a teenager when emotions are particularly volatile, thinking, and actually this has helped me in my work. When the times that I felt like I didn't want to be here was really out of rage to punish someone, that the fantasy would be that I would be dead.
And they would find you.
They would find me.
And that would show them.
And that would show them. And then they'd really feel bad, whether it was a boyfriend that, didn't call back, that, just left, or whether it was my parents. But that's the closest thing that, and I've gone through 2 bouts of clinical depression before. But, as an adult.
What does that look like?
What it looks like is, it's interesting because I didn't even know, and this is important to know, I didn't even know it. It was my sister that first recognized it. But in retrospect, I didn't want to connect and talk to anybody. I was like anxious and scared. So I wanted to hide in my bed under a hole. I didn't feel like getting dressed. I just had no energy. I really just didn't want to do anything, and everything the regular activities of life just felt daunting to me.
Did something happen?
Yes, something usually happens. What it was is the first time, it was at a time when my first husband was getting remarried, and I felt so alone. I was like, okay, the reality is I am alone in the world, and I had 2 young children, and I had to resurrect a career and I really didn't know what I wanted to do. I've had several careers until I found this one, which was the keeper. And I was just overwhelmed, but I couldn't put any language on anything that I was going through. I didn't even know I was depressed, and I think that's why I became so passionate about when I learned about emotions through a postgraduate workshop that I took on the science of emotions, and it's called neurobiology and affective neuroscience, and why I then became so passionate about sharing it with the public, because I think that if I had language to understand what I was going through, it would have made it maybe less intense. Maybe I would have felt the same, but I would have also understood what was happening to me, certainly less ashamed about what was happening to me. And emotion education is a real piece of mental health that is just absent in our society, and that's why I put it all in a book.
So the second time, you knew what it was.
The second time I knew what it was.
And what did something else happen?
Yeah, and I can't even remember what happened.
But you were depressed.
And the way that I remember that I was depressed is both times I went on antidepressants. I went on Prozac. At the time it was called an agitated depression due to too much stress. And what happens is when you have too much stress, it makes it harder for the body. This is what they think.
So it's physiological. It's not in your mind. Is not something that you can meditate through or talk to yourself through. You have to, there's something physiological that medicine or some pill can.
Not necessarily. It's both, right? So one of the things that I'm so excited about sharing is that the mind and the body are integrally connected. So while I took for 6 months Prozac to boost my serotonin, I might not have needed that if I had had the kind of therapy that I do now, which is called AEDP, which would have been to help me understand the emotions, really fear, that were pushing up for expression and that I was trying to tamp down until I squashed, my entire system, which is one way to understand depression. It's a pushing down so that you don't have to feel all these feelings coming up that are overwhelming. And when you feel too alone with them and you can't articulate what's happening, it just becomes a recipe for pain.
I think we talked about this before. I think social media has really exacerbated this whole notion that people are alone, because while we are more connected than we've ever been, the internet and, social media has made us connected to people throughout across the globe. We can talk to somebody, but it's artificial conversation that we have that's either through Twitter or through text or even, the FaceTiming. It's not real human connection. And there's something about human biology that requires, human connection, that requires us to look into each other's eyes at some point. The touch, all of that makes us connect. And we're not connected at all.
You're so right. What you've been reading. That's exactly.
I read I remember before there was social media.
Yeah.
Which is probably why, I grew up in an era where we didn't take pills.
Yeah.
Where we didn't even acknowledge depression. And I don't think that's right either. But I think there was, it was also a time when people went to the movies and they hung out together. We played cards. We played Connect Four. We played hopscotch. We played jacks. We were in the streets. We were playing hot peas and butter and kickball and Mother May I. And kids played one another, not in front of a video game, communicating across the globe with people, but they actually touched one another and they grew up more healthy. And then I watched video games come in, because my brother and I aren't separated by many years, but our upbringings are so different, where he was a kid that didn't go outside a lot, didn't spend a lot of time in the streets with other people, and played a lot of video games. He socializes differently than I do.
Yeah.
And I still don't like to be around a whole bunch of people, but I'm good when I'm out, But I think that this part is missing. And because I grew up that way, I know how to connect back to that, because that's just like card party. Let's have, it's weird that we're in this place right now with all this technology and all of this advancement. This is what's, I think, making us more and more depressed and alone. And I don't know how to fix that, Hilary Jacobs Hendel.
Well, I think there's a lot we can do, and it begins with what you're doing, which is, we have to keep talking about mental health, and we have to keep talking about this idea of connection with others, because humans are wired. It's biology. We have to look at faces. We have to have people seeing us eye to eye, the gaze and the touch and the body language and the vocal tone. These are all ways that we feel connected and loved and seen for who we are. So it's connection to others and reciprocal totally related is the connection with our own deepest self, our connection with our emotional world. And while I know you're not a big fan of emotions,
no, I'm not a big fan of expressing them publicly per se, but even like when you talk about tamping them down, I do that naturally. Yeah. Because to be in an emotional state means that you're out of control on some level. That's how I've always kind of, processed it. If I'm emotional, then I'm out of control. That's what we were taught, but that's not true. Okay, so then you'll educate me. But so if I'm out of control, then I can't navigate spaces the way I need to. So I will feign anger, like when people call up and I go ballistic. I am not emotionally out of control. I'm completely okay. Yeah. Yeah. But, to be really, because I have a fierce temper that I haven't displayed in maybe 20 years. Yeah. But it's like fierce, throwing things. I'll hurt somebody. That's
when you're out of control.
Yeah. Yeah. And I don't like that.
Right.
Because I can hurt somebody.
Right. It's destructive. Yeah. It's not good for you. It's not good for anybody else.
Broken a lot of phones over the days, over the years.
Right. How'd you stop doing that?
I grew up, I think, maturity.
Yeah. No, that helps.
And phones were expensive. I would have my Bang & Olufsen phone go. That was like an $800 phone. It's broken now. For what? Right? Because I'm mad? That's stupid. All right, let me stop doing that.
Good deterrent.
Too costly. Yeah. Let's welcome in the winner. Somebody won your book on the phone. And I'm going to give out the number. If you are depressed and you want to have a conversation with Hilary Jacobs Hendel, she's got solutions. The book is called It's Not Always Depression. And let me welcome in McKellis from Kentucky. You are a winner.
Hey, first time caller.
All right. You got in. So McKellis, welcome to the Call-In family. Why did you want this book?
Hey, man, I've got a person that we've taken in that is severely depressed and has suicidal tendencies, and I thought, boy, this is the perfect, I guess maybe segue to try to help them. We've tried everything, and she is still just leaning on the edge off the deep end towards suicide. And I can only think that it's, because of depression, no attention at home from, the present family, and they're just stressing and striving to find someone to love them, to pay attention to them. So that's the part.
Yeah, you want me to offer some words of sort of advice and ways to think about it. Thank you for sharing that. That's really hard. So what most people don't realize, and you just kind of alluded to it, is that there's a reason that people are depressed. It's not the end of the story, and it's not necessarily and rarely a biochemical genetic thing. That what makes us depressed is the hardship and adversity and abuse and neglect that so many people have experienced, that's not even talked about as common as it is. And what I would do in this case is a combination of a consultation with a psychiatrist who can help with a little bit of like a bump of medication just to take the edge off, to help somebody get back.
I hate hearing that. Yeah. I hate, you know what, I had a class today and I had a speaker, and one of my students raised her hand and said she has anxiety because, I'm sending them all out. They have to talk to people. They have to do a 3-minute presentation. Right. We're all going to listen to it. And she said, I suffer from anxiety and I don't know what to do. And my guest speaker was like, well, I hate to give this advice, but, maybe you can take a little, was it Adderall or add something again with an A. And I was like, I don't ever want to tell my students to take something.
Ativan, it's an anti-anxiety.
She said, just take a quarter of it, take the whole, just take half of the pill or whatever. Yeah. And I'm like, really? Is that, is that where we are? Like, do we need that? Do we need to have a little something that's, I don't
Karen,
know.
it just totally depends on degrees. So what I'm hearing from this gentleman is that she's on the edge. So I would want personally, if someone came into my practice, I would want a team. So I would be doing the psychotherapy, and the type of psychotherapy I would do is going to be the kind that you're going to read about in the stories in the book, which is still relatively unknown, where you're looking to help somebody get in touch with what happened to them and the natural emotions, the core emotions of anger, sadness, fear, disgust, those are on the negative side, and help them feel comfortable expressing those in the room with the therapist. Not like what you said, Karen, like going all over the place and behaving badly, but really what it means to experience an emotion is a totally internal experience of validating what you're feeling, knowing what you're feeling, and allowing the inherent impulses that emotions have to kind of become liberated, because it's like stuck energy, but not in the new age way, but really in the physics of emotions way, that emotions are there evolutionarily for a reason, and they are a compass for living, and they're to help us survive. So when an emotion is triggered, particularly when we're young with abuse and neglect, they are intense, they push up for expression, they need to come out, and they need to be met by another who can hear it, validate it, witness it, soothe it, and then the whole body and the nervous system calms down. And by doing that again and again and helping someone feel more comfortable doing that, and there's so much shame and guilt that's in the way, that we have to learn to teach people that there's nothing wrong with you for having feelings, there's nothing wrong with you for being depressed. Humans suffer, and it's okay. But we want to help you, and there's always hope for healing, because of 3 reasons, and you could tell this to your guest. There's hope for healing because the brain changes from the time we're born to the day we die. Because
what do you mean it changes?
The brain has the capacity to change. We can move neural networks.
I just downloaded a book that talks about superpowers, right? Because I want to tap into mine, and it talked about this scientifically.
Yes, it's science.
That you can, and go ahead, keep talking, Hilary Jacobs Hendel.
So the brain can change, so there's always hope to be able to feel better. There's always hope to be able to feel better because relationships also change the brain. Good relationships, as we know, heal. Bad relationships can cause damage. So if one trauma can change your whole life and make you feel worse in a moment, then one good experience can change your whole brain and restore a sense of wellness. Now, it doesn't usually happen that way, and if there's lots of hardship and trauma,
there's a lot to go through.
There's a lot to go
through. Scarring.
Exactly. And the last reason there's hope for healing is because emotions, these core emotions, anger, sadness, fear, disgust, joy, excitement, and sexual excitement.
Those are the 7?
The 7.
The 7 deadly emotions?
The 7 wonderful emotions.
Okay, what are they again?
Because they are a catalyst for healing. When you experience them in safety, they change the brain for the better.
Anger. Mm-hmm. What's the other one?
Sadness, fear, disgust, joy, excitement, and sexual excitement.
Which is different than just plain old excitement.
Right. And excitement is an emotion that brings, it makes us move. All these are affects in the body. They're physical, and they make us move towards things that are good and away towards things that are bad.
Okay. 866-801-8255. It's Suicide Awareness Week, and we have Hilary Jacobs Hendel, author of It's Not Always Depression, in the house. And there's a suicide hotline that you can call if you are contemplating it or you know someone who's contemplating suicide. 800-273-8255. 800-273-8255. Or you can go to Hilary, which is 1L, not like Clinton. Hilary 1L. Hilary Jacobs Hendel, HENDEL.com. You can go to her website. She has a plethora of resources right there for people who are going through something. Can we take another call? Okay. All right, let's go to Denise in Baltimore. Welcome to the Karen Hunter Show.
Hello.
Hey.
Yeah, I'm calling. I'm a first-time caller. And I'm calling because I'm going through a depression right now. My dad died December 15th, 2017. My mom died February 25th, 2018. Okay, when my dad died, my mom was there. Then my mom died right after him, and I miss both of them so much. I was in shock at first that they are gone, but now it's really hitting me that they're not coming back, and I'm really hurting right now. I'm really hurting.
Of course you are. And one thing I would say is I mean, we could call you as having a depression, but you're grieving. You're sad. You're deeply, deeply sad. And that is so normal. It would be strange if you weren't so sad. You just lost both of your parents. So the one thing that I would want to say is that, contrary to what people might tell you, it's time to get over, it's time to move on, there is no normal for how long it takes to recover. And you're always
Those
going
your
to miss them.
parents.
Yes,
Yeah,
yes.
sure.
And so it leaves an empty space in your heart that takes time. And you have to be very kind to yourself and very, very, very compassionate to yourself, and, be around people that comfort you and get lots of hugs and people to make you tea, and just give yourself lots and lots of time. The way you would know if you were sinking into a depression is, grief can be complicated if the relationships were complicated. So people who had parents that they hated and then they die can get stuck. You get stuck. It's called complicated grief. And then, the way you would know if you were really depressed is you wouldn't be able to do the daily activities of life. It affects your sleeping. It affects your ability to eat. It affects your ability to get out of bed and work.
Denise, are you going through those things?
I'm working full time. I work, but I'm not sleeping that well. I went to my doctor and she gave me some pills to help me sleep. Like I said, each day it's getting worse. I'm crying, and then I'll stop myself. I start tearing up. I think about things, and then I just, because I was very close to my parents.
Yeah.
Very close. I took care of them, at the end.
Yeah. Oh,
So I'm just trying to find out how I can get through this.
Yeah, day by day. And if you find that you're starting to go further down, like the crying again makes sense. You're missing them. So I would let yourself cry. And again, do you have people around you that you can be with that are comforting?
Right now, I don't. My daughter lives about an hour and a half from me. My granddaughter lives in Georgia, so let me see. I don't have any. I have girlfriends here I can talk to. They know, so I can talk to them.
That's good. Just keep talking about it. There are bereavement groups.
But she needs to be around the right girlfriends, because some of them can. Some girlfriends.
Yeah, well, the ones that I'm with, they understand. They're walking me through this.
Yeah. Oh, that's wonderful.
Keep tight to them.
Yeah.
Yeah, because losing your family, you feel like an orphan.
Yeah.
That you're alone in the world. Because most of us live our lives almost to please our parents. Many of us are driven by that, myself included. You want to make them proud. You want, so when those people are gone, it's like you no longer have a compass. There's no due north. There's nobody to share the wonderful things that you're doing or the heartaches that you're having, because that's usually your anchor, your grounding.
Yes.
And to not have that makes a lot of us rudderless, So I completely understand where she is, and I think you're absolutely right, Hilary, that she's more grieving than she is depressed. But that can grieving move into depression if you don't stave it off, if you don't handle it. I don't know.
No, it's not about staving it off. You just have to
walk through it.
If you get stuck, the grieving should get better. It sounds like it's getting more intense now.
You're gonna have bad days.
Yeah.
There's gonna be days, a song that's gonna remind you of one of them, or
exactly.
a smell or something, and that'll send you, because it happens to me with my dad. It's like, oh my God, and even talking about it. So, like, I feel what she's feeling.
Yeah.
Is there some other thing that you can tell her?
No, just that all that love that your parents gave you is in you, and you can feel them in your heart. And sometimes that helps. When my grandparents died, who I was very close to, I just still imagine them, that they're still in their house, and I kind of, I like to kind of talk to them, or I kind of check in my mind, and that's comforting to me. So you can play around with fantasy too. The brain doesn't know the difference between reality and fantasy, so you can talk to them and have a visit. Yeah, it's a great trick in psychotherapy. It allows us, it's how you heal trauma.
Wow.
By imagining certain things. It's more complicated than it sounds. It's not just like, ooh, but it's in the book.
It's Not Always Depression is the book, and I have a Twitter winner. Let me congratulate Squadron Leader at Baron J67 has won It's Not Always Depression. You have to follow I Am Smiz on Twitter so that you can DM him your address so we can send you the book. Okay, Baron J67, thank you as well. Can we take a couple more callers? Let's do that. Let's go to Wanda in Miami. You're on the Karen Hunter Show with Hilary Jacobs Hendel. Hey, Wanda.
Hi, how are you?
Awesome.
Question. That sometimes I don't know if it's schizophrenic or what. I want to get some information about manic depressive. When you're up and down,
Yeah.
do you just consider those to be mood swings, or I've got some stuff going on in my life and everything, and but I don't want to use that for an excuse. But sometimes I wonder if I'm not manic. What are the symptoms of it, and what do you do about it?
Yeah. Well, and that's a pretty serious thing. The way that you would know if you're manic is if you're doing things that you later, again, it's self-destructive, right? So if you're staying up for days at a time, if you're spending your life savings, if you
Wait, that's a thing?
Yeah. If you're doing illegal things, if you're doing lots of drugs, and if you're hitting the depth of despair where you go into, on the downswing, suicidality and, just serious swings. There's a lighter form where you kind of go, you swing up and down, but there's also a huge range of normal of going up and down. I kind of think of it like waves. Some people have very flat waves and they're very even, and just it's natural, it's genetic. Some people dispositionally go way up and way down. But with manic depression, or what they're calling bipolar disease now, you end up hurting yourself and really doing lots of destructive things to your life and your relationships. So do you relate to that?
Well, no. Like I said, I'm also in a grieving state, and I'm under a lot of stress.
Yeah.
And depending upon, I can bring myself out of it. I don't stay in bed and, and all that, but I force myself to get up, and sometimes I cry all the way to work, and but then other things can happen that'll kind of bring me out for a minute or two or whatever, but then I still find myself going back into that state again.
Yeah.
I'm not doing anything destructive or anything like that you mentioned, but yes, I thought about suicide.
Yeah, so you're more feeling depressed.
Is that part of a manic type of a thing because you're up and down?
No, it doesn't sound like that to me. But what I would certainly recommend is just to have a consultation with either a psychiatrist or a psychotherapist, and let them be with you in the room. And
where do you find a good one? Because I've had discussions with both Cousin Sil, who has a psychotherapist, and some other people that are involved here. And culturally, it's important to have somebody who understands your experience, your background. And one person was like, I would never go to a white person to do my therapist. No, that could never happen because they wouldn't understand the things that, how do you find a good one in our community, since we don't go to seek therapy as often as we should? How do we find a good one?
You can just Google online, looking for a psychotherapist in Florida, of color, African American, Hispanic, whatever you want to say, whatever you're looking for. You can go to Psychology Today, which has a huge database of therapists all over the world. It's a big problem in the AEDP community. We're working hard to bring in more diversity. There's too many white people.
Yeah. So also, if you're on that side of it, we need more people to get into the field because we need help, and we need more of us helping us. So,
and we're offering scholarships in the AEDP Institute.
Please, people, please let me take a couple more calls. We got George Wallace coming up next. I went from sadness to hopefully he'll bring some joy. Texas, let's go to Cecilia. Welcome to the Karen Hunter Show. You're on with Hilary Jacobs Hendel.
Hi, Cecilia.
Hello. Hi. Karen, I think you're by far the absolute best talk show in the world. And I've listened to a few of them. I do want to say something, though. I've had depression, too, and really some very severe depression. I've fought it all my life because I just I didn't want to give up. But it is a constant battle, even with therapists, and I've been to therapists, and medication. Medication has helped me. It's not Prozac. They just give you a different kind of medication. And as soon as I stopped using that medication, then I'm right back to where I was. One of the reasons I have been to the point, because I've had some bad things happen to me as a young person, but I just think that people do not understand that it's not something you want to do. It's something like physically, like your brain and your body just slumps. And people generally say, I'll get over it, but it's not that easy. I mean, I've worked with it, gone to school with it, and raised a family with it. And every bit of it was a struggle. It's only in the last year or two I've been able to battle a lot better than I did.
What did you do?
I really want to say.
What did you do to battle better?
Someone said to me, you can't fix the past. And I heard it before, but I never really listened to it. You can't fix the past. You can only go forward. And then someone also told me, you have to care about yourself and not worry about what other people think or feel. And so I guess one morning I woke up and looked in the mirror and said, look, I've done everything I can to help family members. I've done all the pretending I can. And now I'm going to take care of myself, because I don't want to spend the latter part of my life feeling down and beaten when I've managed to finish school, raise my kids.
Look at you.
And I have an excellent support system with my husband. So my husband has been there with me with this depression. I mean, every bit of it. He has hung in there with me, been to the therapist with me, remind me to take my medication, laugh when I laughed, cried when I cried. So I do have that strong support.
Beautiful. That's wonderful.
And I just want to make sure, I want to make sure the last, the fall part of our lives is not wrapped around everything that, my mind tells me. So I'm not going to tell you it's completely over, but I know I battled it a lot better than I did.
So many words of wisdom you just said. And the only thing that I would add is the type of therapy you get really makes a difference. And I'm very partial to therapies that are trauma-oriented therapies that work with emotions and the body. And it sounds like you would benefit from something like that. And depends on where you're located. But therapies like AEDP and internal family systems, IFS therapy, especially when you had when there was childhood hardship, you can really, really feel better. It's very healing. It works.
Are you active on Twitter?
I am active on Twitter.
Follow her at Hilary, 1L, Hilary, Hilary, J, Hendel, Hendel. Follow her. If you have questions, a lot of people, the phone lines are lit. We got to go.
Yeah.
I'm going to take one more call, though, because I think Cynthia in North Carolina has been holding on for a minute. You're on. Welcome.
Hi, Karen. Thank you so much, Karen. I'm so glad to be able to talk to you today. But I wanted to tell you, my daughter was 21 years old. She got sick on a Wednesday of viral pneumonia and died on a Saturday.
Wow.
And it was the most traumatic, painful, horrible. I had 3 sons, and then this is my baby, my daughter, and she died like that. And so anyway, 3 things that really helped me. Well, the first thing was I had to go get therapy. I had to get on Prozac for a year. I couldn't get out of bed. I couldn't make it. I couldn't believe the world was still moving and my baby was dead, you know. The second thing that helped me was I had a good support system. Toxic people got out of my life, people talking ignorant, crazy, making all kind of ridiculous statements. Absent from the body, present with the Lord and all that. That was out. So I just got people who were encouraging. Third thing I did was if you give back, whatever, like my daughter had disabilities. While she was alive, I was involved with disabilities, especially because African Americans, we don't get the same amount of services. So I fought for that. When she died, I started an organization for mothers of a child who had passed away. And so by me helping other mothers, dealing with other mothers, because everybody doesn't have a good support system, it did a lot of healing. I have hard days, sometimes I cry at different times, but it brought a lot of healing because I never want my daughter to be forgotten as though she never existed. And I get to help people, and people always tell me, oh, wow, this is great, you helped me. So those are the 3 things that really, really helped me.
Wow.
Awesome.
That is beautiful.
God bless you. Suicide Awareness Week, 800-273-8255. If you need it, call them now, 800-273-8255. And you can reach Hilary on her website, Hilary Jacobs Hendel, or you can reach her on Twitter, Hilary1LJ Hendel on Twitter. You can keep coming back, Hilary. It's Not Always Depression is the book, Working the Change Triangle to listen to the body, discover core emotions, and connect to your authentic self. Thank you for being back here today.
Thank you, Karen.
All right, when we come back, George Wallace, the legendary George Wallace, will be right here in the studio. I see him. It's the Karen Hunter Show. We're going to make a quick shift. I hope y'all don't get whiplash. We'll be right back.
The hottest show on radio. Raw and insightful interviews with movers, shakers, tastemakers, and experts. This is the Karen Hunter Show.